So welcome everybody to the second hour of MindShifters Radio, and today is Wednesday, January the 3rd, 2024. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And if you didn't tap in or hear what was going on, since we actually missed 7 days, 14 shows since December the 18th, and Blog Talk will not directly answer my questions. And so anyway, we are looking at an alternative, whether it'll be used just on the days that Blog Talk's not working, or whether we will actually switch over to it full time. But it's called Podbean. Bean, not Beam. And I sent out an email to our whole mailing list. So if you're not on our mailing list, you probably didn't get it. So you can drop me a line at Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org, and tell me to add you to our mailing list so you can stay up to date with what's going on. But I sent a step-by-step. This is how you download Podbean to your phone. And it's actually going to work pretty good because, you know, people who call in maybe don't have free cell minutes, or the people that are in like Sweden or Australia or whatever, they'll be able to tap in because you're not using a phone or a cell signal. You're actually going to use, as long as you're hooked to Wi-Fi, and people whose phone, you know, has a cell signal and they're able to pick up Wi-Fi through their cell signal, they could still do it if they're traveling. But they don't have to use a phone number or cell minutes or whatever, or pay for Skype to be able to call in. If you've got the app open on your phone, you have to sign in, and like I said, I sent an email with specific directions saying, you do this and this is what you're going to see, and then you click on here and this is what you'll see. So it's step by step, and it's really simple to get, you know, it on your phone, and you sign up, and if you click through that, you follow us. So when you get to MindShifters Radio, you click that you're following, and when I was testing it, it does. It sent a note to my tablet and my phone saying a live show is on for somebody that you're following. And so that's going to work pretty good. And I've got a few questions still out there waiting on them to answer, but they are tremendous about getting back to me by email within just a few hours. And they actually give me an answer instead of being a generic, thank you for your patience, we're working on it, and not answering my questions. So they are actually responding, which is fantastic. And so we're working on that, and they do have, which it would cost more to upgrade it to the next level, but they do have another level in Podbean where people can that are listening can support us. And of course, Podbean gets a portion of it, like everybody else. But until I'm sure that it's going to work, I'm not going up to that level. But anyway, that is going to be a second way of, if Blog Talk doesn't work one day, you've already got this loaded on your phone, you can just immediately switch over, and we'll be doing it live on Podbean. And so if you didn't get my email, then please drop me a line, let me know, and I'll add you to the mailing list. And then we're offering, and it's in the email, that if you go all the way through signing up, and it's free, and all they ask for is a name, and you can make up a name. You know, like I signed in as myself, then I signed in, I created one that just says in a bottle. So that's a different name, and your email address, and you have to verify that they'll send you an email wanting you to click to verify that that's your email. And then you create your own password. But after that, you know, you can just click and listen. It'll open up and it gives you the option, if you're signed in, that you can just click you want to call in, but you're not actually calling like a phone number. It's just sending a message to the switchboard that you want to talk, and we get to turn on the microphone just like we do now. It's a little bit different layout of the switchboard, but I was playing with it the first 10 minutes of Tim's show and seeing how that would work. So anyway, read the email, sign up, and what we're offering is, if you go all the way through and you click that you're following us, and then they will send you an email saying, welcome to Podbean. And if you forward that email to me, then I am going to do a reply to your email and send you a free MP3 of the Wellness to Stillness streaming. And that's normally a $10 value, and we're just sending it to you for signing up on Podbeam and following us on it. And so that's all I've got to say about that, and I'm going to say welcome, Michael, and turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, dear heart, and kudos and acknowledgement for the, I don't know, probably 30 hours you put into this in the last few days to try and get us back online full time. And so it looks like Podbeam's going to take us to another level. And let me first of all, do a commercial for the bonus. And you might want to just buy it. It's $10. It's a way to support us. It's in our catalog. It's streaming of a meditation that I did. This was back when I was practicing medicine in Atlanta and was really working on supporting people being able to open and heal. And I did a meditation, progressive relaxation called Wellness to Stillness. And it was actually something I did in Atlanta, and then when I moved to South Florida, somewhere in the shuffle it got lost, and I kind of forgot about it. It was gone. And one day I got a phone call from a gentleman who has built homes up in Canada, lived in a pretty high-stress world, and he was in a panic. He said, Michael, do you remember 5 years ago when you met me in Naples, Florida? Well, actually, no, I don't. But anyway, what's up? Well, you gave me a cassette. Back then it was a cassette tape of this meditation that you did, and that's now my wellness program. That's my whole healthcare plan, and I wore the tape out, and I need another one. He was like really insistent. And he said, he used it every day, and it was a thing that kept him from getting sick. It was a thing literally, like he really counted on it as his whole wellness program. High stress executive type in the construction industry. So I went looking and found it and remastered it, and we turned it into a CD, which is available. You can get the physical media by ordering it on our website, and it's $20. But we also then turned it into a streaming item that you can, again, you can order it for $10, but you'll get it free if you sign up for Podbeam and follow our podcast and send Jeanie the confirmation email. So that's all you need to do to get that CD, and it will change your life. I've had healthcare practitioners back in the early days when we were on the road, and when we mastered this or we had it in cassette and then put it into CD, and I'd have healthcare professionals that would buy 20, 30 copies at a time because they give them to their patients. It was like an adjunct to their services they offered. So it's a freebie. And one of the things that several people have said to me over the years about that CD is I've never heard the end of it. That when I listen to it, I just get into such a relaxed state, I go to sleep. And I had never listened to it from the time I did it originally, but one day I was on the road. I did a flight. I don't even remember where I went, but I was flying, and I took a briefcase, and I go to my location, and I do my workshops, and then when I got home, when I got to the hotel, I opened the suitcase, and there's a copy of I think it was still a cassette tape back then. Like, well, I'm going to give this a listen. Guess what? I didn't hear the end of it. I still haven't. But anyway, just a fun little tidbit of information. So sign up for podcasts. It'll come free. And or, if you want to support us, of course, there's always the donate button. And or if you want to buy a product, that's a way to support us. We've got the Codependence to Interdependence Intensive 90 hours of video, mind-boggling processing, all the questions, all the answers, all of the processing. It includes 2 personal code evaluations. That's another way to support that whole program. I mean, literally 90 hours is $600, including the personal code evaluation. And then, of course, on the radio show, ongoing question and answer support for working with the tools in the Codependence to Interdependence workshop. And we cover, why is this happening to me again? Healing through relationships, communication. Did you hear what I think I said? And codependence to interdependence. And so it's a powerful 90 hours. I mean, if you like what you're hearing here, where we're giving you pieces and you know, as much support as we possibly can, there's a consistent, cohesive presentation from hour 1 to hour 90 that includes all of the teaching, all of the questions and answers of the people. I think we had about somewhere around 40 people. It was actually 2 intensives, so we had somewhere around 38 or 40 people. So all of their questions and answers, responses, processing, still point breathing sessions, the whole works. So MindShifters, we covered all of it. So it's a powerful piece of work, and we're seeing people that on the personal code evaluation, which theoretically, according to the world of psychology, once you do that evaluation, or it's actually based on a deeper, more comprehensive piece of work called the MMPI, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. It's kind of considered to be the gold standard of psychological testing. Well, the personal code evaluation is based on that. And according to psychology, they do that test to give you a baseline, and then their baseline, that's it for life, it doesn't change. And on a scale of 100, we have 10 different scales in that evaluation. And on a scale of 100, each one of those, we regularly, as people pick up this work and do it, and again, these things aren't supposed to change, but we'll see 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80-point improvements on a 100-point scale. And just watch people's lives turn around in ways that are beyond comprehension in the normal world. So that's out there. Some other things I'm excited about is we just stepped into doing, or I just actually a couple days ago decided to invest in an advanced AI program. You know, one of the things that I really have appreciated about this show is the interactions, the questions over the last 12 years, you know, heading into 13, and the questions, the processing, the answers, the sharing, just monumental. And there are highlights of it, which of course you perhaps, if you were listening over those 12 years, remember when, you know, person A did this piece of work or that piece of work or what have you. And of course I have many highlight memories of just, you know, being in tears over the changes that people have experienced. But how do you access that? Well, guess what? We're going to be able to take all of that, and we're going to be able to take AI, integrate it with all of our videos, all of those like almost 5,000 hours of conversations. And then we're going to be able to pull topical information out of that whole database and put it together in mini courses that will be available so that, you know, if you're interested in healing through relationships, well, here's, you know, 13 years of processing around relationships. If you're interested in codependence, we'll be able to pull out every conversation about codependence. You know, we spent about, I don't remember now, honey, was it, I think 10 or 12 weeks doing codependence to interdependence. It's in the archives. But we're going to be able to pull all of that and turn it into mini courses. Like, and this AI is just monumental. We're going to be able to get transcripts of every one of those shows. And I'm thinking probably we're going to put those on the internet in the form of mini courses. And it's two things I'm excited about is the way we're going to be able to organize the information and make it available. And of course, the last 5 years when we haven't been traveling, after 40 years on the road, traveling, doing our workshops free and paying our own expenses, the way we created cash flow was if people appreciated what they got, they'd support us with a donation. Well, of course, that's changed in the last 5 years because we haven't been on the road. And frankly, people who participate in the radio show are, you know, just say what monumental shifts they've got, but it doesn't turn into much support, unfortunately. So this is going to empower us to create a different level of cash flow, restoring some of that, and that's going to empower us to do the next level of how do we put this work together and make it available. So all in all, I just see us moving to a whole different level with technology, and then taking, you know, millions and millions of spoken words that how could any one brain ever make sense of them in terms of remembering and correlating it, where this AI takes note of every word and knows how to take every idea, every thought expressed, and put it together into a clear, concise, consistent package that I think is going to create a whole new level of benefit and make a whole new level of availability with this work. So, and by the way, if you happen to have any skills in that arena, we're just getting started with it. I'm sure there's going to be a big learning curve ahead of us. So if you have any skills in that arena and you'd like to volunteer those skills, that would be awesome. And do an exchange for intensives, whatever, something along those lines, or support. Both Jeanie and I are, and it's been close to 40 years since I've done personal sessions with people in just the last few months, because we're sitting here in Bristol, Virginia, and there's not a whole lot that happens here. I've gone back to doing one-on-one sessions with people, so if you're interested in doing that, drop a note to Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org. And of course, Jeanie is doing personal sessions too, does awesome work, and she's working on finishing her book off and getting it ready to go out to the world. And so lots of things gelling and moving, and looking forward to just how all of this brings this whole level of work the whole body of work to the next level of being available and expanding on a global scale. We're going to be able to take, we've got the book in 9 different languages. We're going to be able to start to pull that information together in just different ways through this AI, and finding ways to take the material and make it more concisely available in terms of large packages of data that are sometimes difficult to comprehend, and put it in a way that's comprehensible. I mean, literally, we can go into AI and say, well, take that 5,000 hours and give us a 4th grade level written piece about healing through relationships. Give us a 10th grade level of the same material and write it out of that material. It will be able to give us a postgraduate level understanding and write it in that voice. So, there are just so many things we're going to be able to do with this information. It takes to the next level. I'm very, very excited about it. I've been watching some demonstrations of AI and just how it can be integrated. It will integrate with video. We'll be able to take snippets of videos. I mean, it's just, the possibilities are endless and amazing. And so we'll be excited to share that with you. And beyond that, if you're out there in listener land and you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show live. And then if you push 1, that will raise a hand in the control panel, and Jeanie will know that you want to talk to us, and she'll introduce you by your area code, and we'll have a conversation. Of course, I'll ask you what your name is, but if you want to say your name is Bill and your name's really Hortense, that's okay with me. If you want to keep it private, keep it to yourself. And we ask people to do this through the radio show because we're creating this database. One of the, I think, the most disastrous games of the non-being mind, or the ego as it's called, EGO meaning edging God, God being love, edging love out of their lives. One of the most dastardly things about it is that it has most people believing that their situation is the worst that ever was, and it's different than anybody else, and nobody could ever understand. And that's one of the biggest lies ever. We're all in this boat together, you, me, and everybody else on the planet. There's nobody that's any different. And yes, we have different experiences, we have different painful realities, we have different power person dynamics, but everybody plays by the same rules. And some people want to be egotistical, say, oh, well, mine is different. You would never understand. Excuse me? There's a set of principles by which you can understand the whole thing, and by which you can literally, I don't care what your history is, I don't care what your trauma is, Actually, a memory that comes up for me at this point, I'm looking across my room right now, and I have a picture of my former partner who's now passed, Dan McDougald, who was the co-author with me of Laws of Living. Or maybe more properly, I was the co-author of Laws of Living with him. He was an attorney. Interesting, he was a Navy man in World War II, and when the Navy did IQ tests on their sailors, Dan was number 3 in the U.S. Navy at the beginning of World War II when they did that assessment. He had the 3rd highest IQ. So he was my partner, and he was working in the Atlanta prison system, federal prison, with the what he called EMI. Came from the Aramaic, Emotional Maturity Instruction. By the way, we're going to start on the 15th to work with the Khabouris Manuscript from the or the Enlightenment book from the Khabouris Manuscript. That's going to start on the 15th, and if you want a copy of that book, it sells for $25 plus $9 shipping. A special, to make it available for anybody who wants to participate and follow along and work with what we're going to do with it. If you go to our website, whyagain.org, there's a donate button, and if you donate $26, the book's $25, donate an extra $1. That will actually take care of what PayPal takes out of it, and it goes through PayPal, but you can do it with a credit card, or if you've got PayPal, or whatever way you do it, your bank account. Anyway, if you donate $26, we'll pay for the shipping, and that'll get it in the mail to you, so you get it before the 15th when we start working with that. But Dan was working in the Atlanta prison system, and he became so admired by some of the criminals. In one case, he was hated by many of them because there was a power structure, and he was destroying the power structure. Literally, the work he did with AMI and later with Laws of Living cut recidivism in the prison by 93%. But he aroused the ire of some of the power structure, prisoner power structure, in the Atlanta prison, and there was a bounty put out on his head to have him killed. And there was a man in that prison who'd been there, I don't even remember now how many years, but in the prison for a long, long time. He was a murderer. And he liked to kill people. That was literally, according to Dan, that was this guy's thing, was killing people. And he had gone to prison for murder. He was in there for life. And I don't remember how many, but he killed more than one person in the prison. But he watched Dan, and he watched what was happening with the men Dan was working with. And he shifted, and he became a supporter of Dan. And actually, when this contract was put out on Dan's life, he became Dan's protector and defender, and nobody touched him. That's the kind of shift we see happening with this work. We hear from people all the time. One particular trip, we were in Hawaii, and we did a week of workshops at Unity in Diamond Head. It was a great week. We just had a blast. And the minister there had never seen the kind of changes that happened from a week of workshops. And we were hanging out in Hawaii. We had 2 other venues we were speaking in. And he contacted us and said, I understand you're staying here for a while. Would you come back and do another series? I don't remember, Jeanie, what the time frame was that we went back. I know we were going to be there for about a month. We ended up having to stay extra time in order to do this extra week. It was really kind of tough because it was January. And we had to stay in Hawaii in February instead of come back to the States. But anyway, that was a tough part of the job there. But the second week of workshops we did at Unity in Diamond Head, we had 3 different people come to us and say that the month before when we'd been there, they had planned to commit suicide. They were actively in plan to commit suicide, and they came back to that second round of workshops. We don't usually go back to a center like that for a year or 2 or maybe 5 years. We had 3 different men that came to us and said, we were planning, each one of them, I was planning to commit suicide, and I'm so glad I didn't, because as a result of that week of workshops, I understand now what was going on in my life and why I felt so hopeless and helpless. And now I realized that, they were just realities in my mind, and they didn't have to drive me, and I didn't have to be in control of them, and I knew how to get rid of them. So that's a pretty normal result that we get, and we'll ask and enlist your support of letting other people know. This last couple of weeks of Blog Talk falling apart on us has put a hole in our listenership. And so if you'd let people know, pass on the information of this show and invite people to jump on and listen. And we're here to offer every ounce of support that we possibly can in 50 years of developing this powerfully. I mean, just when I could write 10 books about the experiences of people that I've seen whose lives have turned around from rage and hatred and vengeance and pain and trauma to, I think of one guy that his father was a jailbird, had been in and out of jail this kid's whole life, and the only time in this kid's languaging, the only time his father came home was to beat him and beat his mother. And he followed the trail, alcohol, jail, and started to do this work. And, now is out there supporting people healing, teaching, supporting people healing. There's another gentleman that came to this work from the military, and what he shared once he became comfortable talking with us was how the thing that got his attention was that he was an alcoholic. He got drunk, and when he woke up, he found he urinated all over himself and was hanging at the end of a rope that broke. He tried to commit suicide, and he now teaches this work in a church in Florida. It's monumental to see lots of people pick the work up and turn it around and use it in their practices or in their work. Some of them acknowledge and support us as a result, and some of them just put it in their pocket and pretend it's theirs, and that's okay. Of course, we'd appreciate the support because it takes, I don't know how many thousands of dollars we've got in the app, but it's out there and it's free, and each time it has to be adjusted, it takes another chunk of money, and a 20,000 page website is not cheap to keep on the road, and on and on it goes. So if you're out there in listener land and we can support you, our call-in number again is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you're listening to the show directly on your phone. Perhaps we'll soon be able to do that on Podbean, which means you won't need to use cell minutes. And anybody in the world that's got access to an internet connection will be able to call us, not just be in the chat room as currently. But we'll see how that all develops. And again, if you've got any technical knowledge that could be of support, one of the things we're thinking about is taking all of our 4,500 to 5,000 hours, I'm not sure exactly, of radio shows and putting them on YouTube so that they'll be available there as well. So that's kind of a lowdown of what's happening for the new year, and looking forward to, excited about where it all goes from here, about what the next level, the possibilities of AI taking this beyond our own individual capacities, and this is there's a conversation about the kind of AI that's out there that's a threat to humanity. We're not talking about that kind of AI that has, is set up to do independent things like, push buttons on nuclear arsenal, that sort of crazy stuff. This is a kind of AI that just is neutral and only responds and is available to follow commands for technical work and writing and those sorts of things. And it's just, if you haven't looked at it, check on the internet. It's just amazing what these things are capable of doing, and doing it in a heartbeat. So that's what's happening, and we've got about 30 minutes left. So, Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet. Nobody's asking questions in the chat room, and there's no hands up. We have 29 minutes, so come on, people.
So they're out there in listener land.
Hand just went up.
Cool, let's go
Ms.
for
Susan, 610, you're on the air.
Hey.
Welcome, youngin.
Michael, Hi.
Yes,
Thanks.
ma'am.
You mentioned AI, and most of the time I hear scary things about AI, and I'd love to know what you know about it and how you picture using it. I'm starting at kindergarten level here, so...
Right. Well, I've just started at kindergarten, too, and I looked into it enough. This is just last week I became aware of, there's ChatGPT that people talk about, but ChatGPT is like the baby sister kind of thing. And the company we've gone with is like the big sister who's got a PhD in 10 different languages in 10 different fields. So what I'm envisioning, for instance, we'll be able to take, let's say, all 5,000 hours or 4,500 hours, whatever it is, I don't know exactly, of our radio shows from the last 12 years, and it will transcribe it all. And then we can query that those transcripts. So let's say, for instance, I say I want to write a course for a grade 3 level classroom on healing through relationships. Within a matter of about a minute or a minute and a half, it will take every reference to healing through relationships that's been made in every conversation with you and, every conversation Jeannie's had, every conversation Dr. Tim's had. It will take all of that within a matter of seconds and literally put it into a course, an article, a course that is laid out and totally complete. Of course, you go through it to see if there are any places there's any misunderstandings, refinements needed, or additions, solutions. But it'll literally take every reference and, in a matter of seconds, give you a whole course for a grade 3 level classroom. And, when that finishes, I can then go and say, now, I want the same course, but I want it in a postgraduate voice. So we'll take it, put it in, and it will, it'll take the all of the audio portions of healing through relationships in our videos and integrate that as well. And then I can say, and now I want to integrate it with snippets from our video workshops. And then it will take every piece of, let's say there's a place where we talk about the file folder effect. So it will pick out 45-second snippets of the conversation from a video on the file folder effect, integrate that with every time over the last 12 years we talked about the file folder effect, and put it into a video and in context explain what that video means. I mean, it's just, it's monumental. I'll send you a couple of links to some of the things I've been watching about what can be done with it, and it's just mind-boggling.
So it isn't just a computer that can glean every relevant reference and pile it together. It sounds as if it's got, well, they call it intelligence, artificial intelligence.
It will do it with comprehension.
God, it's so amazing.
It will do it with comprehension. One of the demos that convinced me to go ahead and do this, the guy saying, okay, so here's one of the things you can do with it. Let's say that you want to go into, you want to create a YouTube account and monetize it and make money with it. So and one of the things you like to do is ski. You'll put in a query about, and let's say you like to ski in Europe. So you want to become an internet content provider about skiing in Europe. So, and he goes through and he says, so we'll put this in, and we want a little bit of humor, and we want to use it in a voice, and we want to write it like, who's a famous writer. We want it, that style of writing with picture and video links. And then, and I'll send you this video. I mean, literally 2 minutes later, you're watching a 5-minute video that opens with the Swiss Alps, and they've named the Alps resort, with a really cool, contextual name, and then it'll go to the resort in France. That's the French finale, and then it'll go to the one in Italy that is this and that, and it'll explain the resort and tell you about the facilities and what the food's like and what the drink's like, and literally in 3 minutes, you've got a finished video that anybody who's into skiing, if they click on it, goes, oh wow, I like that. Oh, look at that, and it's intelligently narrated as you directed it to be narrated. And you can use, let's say, your 10 favorite writers or your own voice. You can train it to use when it talks about using a voice. Like if I took, let's say, 10 things that you've written and put them in and asked ChatGPT to, or pardon me, this program, it's just way above ChatGPT. I could say, I put 10 things that you've written into it, and then I want, what I'm doing is I've talked to Susan, and she wants me to do a course for the people she's worked with over the years. Then I get them to take my work and write it in your voice, like the style of writing that you do, because it's for your audience. It's going to be my material, but it's for your audience, and you ask me to teach to them or to provide an outline to them, and in your voice, it'll take my work and write it for this topic with the people you've worked with over the years. It's mind-boggling what it's going to be able to do. And, frankly, we've been really good at developing the content and the materials and the tools, but marketing is not our forte. Putting it out there, we do what we do, and here it is. We were on the road, that was okay, but now that we're here for 5 years, it's kind of put a hole in things like cash flow. So I really see this as, one, a way that we're going to be able to expand making it available, and two, that it's going to create a significant amount of support that we can do more development of what it is that we want to develop and where we want to go with it. So, but I'll send you a couple of things, and it's just, mind-boggling.
And you can't tell that it's artificial intelligence. You would never know that it was.
I think that if you're really educated on it, you can tell. But here's the thing, or here's my understanding. Once it does, present something, there are things that, are kind of, it wouldn't be the way that I'd say it. So once I've finished a presentation, once I've gotten it to asked it to put it together and gotten it back, then I can go through and go, no, that doesn't sound like me. No, this doesn't work. Yeah, we can refine that a little bit and that where it's off. But one of the biggest things I see is the ability for it to draw on this huge database of information we've developed over the last half century is just going to be awesome.
Oh, it's very exciting. It's very brave of you to even consider it. I wouldn't go near it, but hearing you talk about it, maybe,
Well, our commitment is to take this, and what we're literally looking to do is to make this available to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. So, how are we going to do that from Bristol, Virginia? Well, we've had to adapt with stopping traveling and being here. So there's just going to be a different approach we're developing. It's kind of like you take the app. That's just taking Jeanie a huge learning curve, a huge amount of information to put that together. And so I see this as just being the next step in being able to synthesize our information in a way that makes it available. Like, let's say, for instance, we wanted to do a 50-hour course on healing through relationships. We can tell this thing to take all 12 years of our work, all of our videos, put it all together, and actually you can also do, let's say, so we take all of our data from the years, and then we say, now go to the internet and find everything you can find on healing through relationships. And now what I want is a mix. I want 90% of our approach and our work on healing through relationships, and a 10% mix of what you found on the internet. And it might find thousands of hours on the internet, and so it will just by giving it that command, put in 10% of what it found on the internet, or 20 or 50%, or I mean, the flexibility and the possibilities are just awesome, and I just see it as a way that we can effectively take what we've spent decades creating and putting it into packets that are going to make it more available, more appealing, and put it out. And then beyond that, that's just the content creation. And then there's a whole marketing aspect to it that it knows how to set up and write. Like you can say, now I want to, let's say on that, the thing we talked about with resorts. So you can then say, so now what I want to do is I want you to find all the venues in the world that would be interested in ski resort information, and I want you to write an internet introduction and then a description of the video, and then all of the places in all of the sites in the world where we could place it, and now I want you to place it there. I mean, this is now, I mean, that would be years of work for an individual to do previously. I kind of compare it to, I can remember back in the early days, I'd make a flyer, and I'd put the flyer together, and I'd write it, and I'd scratch things out, and I'd write it, and then I'd take it to a copyright place, or a typesetting place, and they'd typeset it, and they'd give it back to me, and I'd proof it, and I'd take it back to them, and they'd give it back, and I'd take it back, and I'd give it back, and finally we get what I want, and that might take 2 weeks and cost $600 to get that flyer done. Well, now we consider our computers, and I can make all those edits and do it all for nothing. And ChatGPT, or the extension of ChatGPT that we just decided to jump into, is going to do that for the whole massive data that we've developed over the last 50 years.
You talk about,
and we'll be able to do it
marketing.
Like,
Go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt.
So there's another aspect that once you've got like let's say we put the course material together, we've got it for the kids at grade 3 level, we've got it for the kids at grade 8 level, we've got it for high school kids, and we've got it for college postgraduate work. So now it will show us with a query where are all the markets where we could put a course paid or free for kids at a grade 3 level, at a grade 8 level, at a grade 12 level, at a postgraduate level, and it'll go, like within seconds go, oh, here are the places you can put it. And so it's going to just, with our commitment to make this available to every mind, heart, and being, it's going to just take it globally. And then, and this will be another whole learning curve, which will come later, is then it's going to be able to take whatever we develop in English and put it into other languages and do that as well.
That's so tricky. I want to back
So
up
I see that as, we've got, go ahead.
You're on a roll, Michael.
Well, as you might be able to tell, I mean, the possibilities I'm seeing, it's sort of been, at this point with us being here, it's been a little bit stagnant because I'm not a marketing person. It's not an expertise that I have, and we don't have the cash flow to go out and hire a marketing person. Pardon me?
That's the question I wanted to ask, is you do mention, it's getting tight there. Well, nobody's going to be surprised at that. You've been giving and giving and giving and giving. You set up these huge connections all over the world, but you say, people put it in their pocket and they use it, and they're not even thinking probably about sending in some dough for all of the benefits they've gotten. But on the other hand, could AI actually go into that area? If you asked AI, could you send us, a breakdown of how many people have used this and find a way to get some money out of it, to put it
monetize, yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking about going to Facebook, is starting to put this on Facebook, because Facebook pays per click. Once you get a certain level of audience, or pardon me, not Facebook, but YouTube, once you get a certain level of audience, then every time somebody listens to it, you get a certain, it might just be a tenth of a cent, but when your market's 7.5 billion people, a tenth of a cent can be pretty significant. I mean, there are many people, if you look on YouTube, there are many people who've created, literally citizen news organizations, and their whole livelihood, and they're doing well, is their YouTube videos. And we've got, we've got so much content that we can turn into YouTube videos. It's just monumental. But to this point, we haven't been able to do it.
It strikes me that we are externally more divided and treating one another more poorly, with less respect and so forth, through the media and so forth. And you've got this other thing that it's like a balloon that hasn't really been blown up fully, where it would burst and let the stuff out into the atmosphere. It's a desperate situation, and we need the stuff you're teaching at every level. When you teach kindergartners, third graders, how it's sort of like that nonviolent communication idea, that book that came out that teaches people how to communicate without doing damage, and finding ways to connect. Here you've got this body of work that really hasn't been birthed yet, in a certain sense, even though some of us are on board forever.
Right. Yep, you're right.
It's just an amazing thought. Oh, very exciting.
This is the AI is what's going to empower us to take it to that level. And at the same time as we're watching the hatred, the violence, the insanity that's taking over the media and the culture, at the same time, I really want to put into the equation that there are millions of people who are moving in the direction of functioning as human beings that are doing awesome things in the world, both locally, like you are. I mean, look at what you're doing in your community with the immigrant population. Well, there's a faction of the government or the non-government that wants to become the government that's saying we want to do everything we can to hate immigrants. There are people that are doing what you're doing with immigrants, and so there are parallel tracks there. And I think it was it Mahatma Gandhi or was it Martin Luther King that said the arc of...
Oh, that was Martin Luther King, I think, but I'm not...
Yeah, Martin Luther King. The arc of decency bends toward goodness, towards the presence of love. And while there's that crazy stuff that's becoming more visible because we've got all this media and coverage, there are awesome, amazing, wonderful things being done by millions of people. And, if we can make these tools available on another level to those who just don't know any different than, well, my power person raged at me, so I rage at people. That's how you do things, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one mind at a time gets converted to, no, that's not how you do things if you're human. And so, I just, to me, this gives a whole other level of hope. Even though the darkness is becoming more visible. I don't think there's any more darkness today than there was 100 years ago.
No, but it's surfacing.
You look at World War II, you look at World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War. That darkness has been there, but by and large it's been relatively hidden. But the same voices that are coming out in the media today with their hate and their vile, pained, traumatic minds that are passing the trauma on, they're the same minds that, got us into World War I and II and Korea and all of those. They're just more visible now. And fortunately, I think on the side of the decency and the presence of love has expanded more than the violence has. It's just that the violent mind, the bully mind, is a whole lot louder, and it tends to call to itself other minds that have unresolved bully power person dynamics. And so, and it's become more visible, but I don't think it's any more present than it has been forever.
That's probably true. And I've thought about that myself, but it is astounding, isn't it? To think to see it coming out, because you didn't know it was there, or maybe I don't know. And I know I had a friend, she was my age, she's now deceased, she was a priest. She wrote a book on evil that I just loved and thought was wonderful. And I said, how do you know about the nature of evil as you do, and how could you write about it the way you did? And she said, because I know myself. And I thought, isn't that amazing? She wasn't pointing any fingers. I've been observing myself, but she had gotten to the point where it's as if she had tools. She knew how to step away from the dark side of herself and choose to be a human being, as you would put it, over and over again.
Choose once again.
And I could go to that. Choose again, yeah. Well, she did that. I want to change gears just a little bit and tell you a lovely little story about our support group. I have a woman I've known only. I have a woman in my neighborhood who used to go to my church. She moved somewhere a little farther away, can't get to it. Sort of by accident, she found that she was adopting a child without really planning ever. She had a couple of her own kids. It was a cousin who was on drugs, and cousin and the boyfriend had this baby, and the cousin and the boyfriend came to live with her with their new baby, and the new baby bonded beautifully with these healthy parents, and the young cousin woman said, he's yours. I can't do it. I can't take care of him. And she said, she said yes, and it wasn't a pleasant yes. She said, I was almost play acting being the mother of this child. And I'm not that good of a person. I never would have thought of doing this, but here it was. So I said yes, and as a result of that, a similar situation happened with another couple who are distant relatives, and she now has adopted a boy and girl who are now 9 and 10 years old. She adopted them when they were 4 and 5. And again, it was a situation of drugs, and these children have trauma, terrific trauma in their past. And she's dealing with the daughter particularly, who's very manipulative. She'll cuddle up to you because she's manipulating you, because she wants something, but she also really wants connection. And so this woman has joined my group. I said, you need to talk and we need to work together, because we're all working on these issues. I'm working on the same kinds of issues with Michael, who will be very apologetic and very kind, but I also feel manipulated and used, and I'm dealing with this. And that mind shifter, by the way, has become a mantra. I haven't done it on paper even, Michael. I just repeat it to myself, and I think of the reasons why it's not true, and then I think, but it is true. It is true. This gentle soul is teaching me, and I can make quick progress. It's been really helpful just to have it. But so this woman has joined our group, and even though she has so much to talk about and needs so much support, she's also taking care of her aging father, who just spent 20 hours in the ER, and she stayed with him because the hospitals are busting at the seams. And she came on even though she needed to go to sleep, but she said, I've got to be here because this is feeding me. And I'm thinking, my voice, Tim Hayes, Jeanie, you're doing it. It's just being spread around. And we had our second group with her in, and she's just fitting right in, and she says, I can't tell you how much I need to be here. This is salve for my soul. So anyway, thanks for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If each person who comes across these tools at whatever level of capability they have to comprehend and use them, if each one just teaches one, it's not going to take that long for the world to be changed.
It won't.
Because one, I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard the story about the guy who ended up owning a whole kingdom because he made a bet with the king, and what he just goes back into ancient times, and what he wanted for his services that the king really wanted was they had a checkerboard, and just give me 1 grain of wheat for the first square on the checkerboard, and then double it, 2 grains on the second. Or 4 grains on the third, 8 grains, and he ended up owning the kingdom because by the time you get to 64, the number is astronomical. And if each person would just take responsibility for passing this tool on to one person, and we get a group of people who are actually doing that, again, at whatever level they're capable of, then, change can happen pretty fast.
Yeah. One thing this young woman is saying is, I have to make sure I am well rested. Basically what she's saying is, I don't want to go to sympathetic dominance mode. I think that's how you'd say
right.
it.
Yep.
It takes me a long time.
Yep.
I need to stay I need to stay well, or I can't do this. And anyway, that's neither here nor there, but it's a full-time job with the self. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just the fact that people can now comprehend that we can hand them something that says, here, you've got this thing called the autonomic nervous system. Once something's set in it, everything's automatic. And there's a sympathetic side, sympathetic dominance, and there's parasympathetic. Just to be able to understand that in order to retain higher brain function, I can't do hostility, I can't do fear, and I can't do high levels of stress. I have to do something with that. To me, I can't fathom anybody when I was a kid that had any comprehension of that conversation. They were just pushed and ran and worked like hell, and worked at the factory or worked at the shop or whatever, and they did 12 and 14-hour days, and they did 6-day weeks, and they had no idea there was a thing called sympathetic dominance, and that when they were in sympathetic dominance, they were basically stupid animals. They were controllable. They were slaves, basically. The plantation owner didn't have to pay for their house anymore because they gave them what they called a wage. And you look at, we've got, I think, 20 states now that has a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour or less. We've still got 20 states that the minimum wage in a world where, a simple 2-bedroom house these days is at least $2,000, and their people are making $7.25 an hour throughout that whole state. Or there are a couple of states, their minimum wage is $5.25 an hour today.
Yeah.
And that's that's basically slavery without the label. And there are 20 states in America that's still what's going on. So the fact that people can, en masse, start to understand, I need to get out of this. This is what sympathetic, I understand. And literally now, today, people can understand that conversation in an hour or less. And go, I need to do something about my life. And, and here are the tools. Here's how to do it. It's monumental. And we're at such a pivot point of change in the upward direction. And to always remember that when the higher frequency is available, that's the one that's going to run the system. Over and above the lower. The higher is always going to penetrate and dissolve the lower. And it's always going to be the higher frequency. If we can get enough people who will work from the higher frequencies within themselves, that's going to make a massive shift within their own physiology, within their own family systems, with their own community. And if we get, as Yeshua said 2,000 years ago, the little bit of leavening that leavens a whole loaf of critical mass of people, that bring that shift, then the game's, I really feel hopeful that even with all the crazy going on out there, we're really on the cusp of something major in terms of humanity becoming more human.
Oh, that's great. May it be so.
And may it
I
be
know
so.
we're at
And
the
it
end
is.
of the hour.
It is. Well, thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you deeply. Sweet to hear that story about the group that you're doing on Wednesdays for the support group, and we invite other people to step up to the plate. Start your own MindShifters support group. We're here to support you in doing that. And in the meantime, have the best year yet of your eternal life. It is an awesome gift to give the world, and the world is